I'm sorry for being harsh on this, but this video made some very strong assertions, so I'm going to very strongly oppose it. This is a video response to the video entitled Tests for Atheists, Evolution of the Coke Can by Blessed1333. I'm just going to go through some of your major points. It's a pretty long video. You try and cover a lot of topics, so I kind of tried to break it down to a few points, and I'm going to go one by one and talk about few issues I had with them, because you had some very strong claims. So let's take a look at them more closely. Your first example goes along with the title. You talk about a metaphor in which a Coke can comes into existence basically by chance after a great big bang, hypothetically without any sort of designer or method of transition. The biggest problem I have with this example is it doesn't take into account, because clearly it's a metaphor for evolution, it doesn't take into account concepts of natural selection or basically evolution at all. You're basically creating something that sounds like evolution but lacks all inherent qualities which validate evolution as being possible. So you're not even doing justice to the argument at all, which really doesn't do much for you except make you look less intelligent. So you might want to fix that. Furthermore, even if the example was correct and it debunked evolution, somehow it was like, oh gosh, we didn't think about that, you're right. Even if it proved evolution wrong, you really seem to have confused atheism with evolutionism. These are two very different things. Atheism doesn't hold the burden of proof. Evolution does hold the burden of proof. It is a theory, a positive assertion about how things are. Atheism is not a positive assertion. Atheism is a lack of assertion. While evolution does oftentimes fit into the context of atheism, and many atheists are also evolutionists, it's almost certainly neither necessary nor sufficient to believe in evolution and also be an atheist. There isn't that correlation. That's a fallacy. So, moving on. Your second point talked about the complexity of the human eye. The fact that something is incredibly complex doesn't really give just cause to mean that God did it. Just because you found something that's really complicated and you don't know how it came into existence doesn't mean that specifically your concept of a God did it. So, I mean, God is kind of like this default for you, and not only is the concept of a God the default for you, but your God, Jesus Christ, is your default. There is nothing inherent about the human eye that says Jesus made this. It's quite arguable, in fact, that there's nothing about the human eye that says God, as we understand him, made it, or anything related to God made it. All we know is that it's complex, and it may or may not be possible to be accomplished through natural selection, and that is a whole different thing, but you haven't even brought up natural selection yet, so that point hasn't even tried to be argued by you. So you committed the fallacy of limited choice, basically. You said, if evolution didn't do it, God did it. Not only God, but my God. So either it's evolution or it's Jesus Christ. There are many other options, and you're not even taking into account the fact that we may not have even thought of the theory. The correct theory may not have even come about yet. Okay, trying to move along a little faster. Your third point took a Darwin quote completely out of context. Take that quote and Google it, please. You will find that it is out of context. He prefaced his argument with your point. He basically said, yeah, this doesn't seem right at all, but ... and then continued on to how it fits in with his concepts. You really should read that if you're going to make videos about it. I think it's complete intellectual nonsense to take things out of context. Maybe you didn't know, now you do. Please research it. Your fourth point was a quote by Einstein, All right, so now you're committing the fallacy of appeal to authority, and beside just putting that fallacy aside, it doesn't even confirm that any God, let alone your God, had anything to do with it. Your fifth point was basically your series of tests for the atheists. At the end, I took this test, and I'm happy to say that I failed completely. The first question was, if a person thinks that a Coke can has no designer, they are A, intelligent, B, a fool, C, they have an ulterior motive for denying the obvious. Alright, well that seems pretty limiting actually. There's really no mention of a possibility that someone doesn't feel they have inaccurate enough information to make a decision. Now, given your example, yeah, okay? I mean, a Coke can isn't just going to come into existence because a Coke can doesn't exhibit properties which allow it for natural selection. It doesn't reproduce, it doesn't have genetic mutation, it doesn't have any of those other sorts of things. But when we do look at it in the context of what the metaphor is referring to, which is evolution, someone really could say, I don't think I have enough accurate information to say either which way. So really you're not allowing for that option of indecision, which really needs to be included in this metaphor. So 2 problems with that one. Your second question was, know of any building without a builder? This one actually made me laugh because a building by definition is something which is built by a builder. So I know what you're trying to say, but it had semantical humor for me. I thought it was ironic that you try and pull that. You could have said something like a bridge, but a building by its very essence is defined by the fact that it was built. So no, I don't know of any building that doesn't have a builder, because if it didn't have a builder, it wouldn't be a building. So your third question was, does an atom prove that there is order in the universe? Yes, it does. Don't really know what you're trying to say there. So moving on. Question 4, does all creation's DNA patterns show a mathematical pattern? Yes, very much so. What's your point? Moving on. Question 5. Do you have a relationship with God? I like this question. I liked it because it made me think. I would like to say, if he exists, then yes. I talk to myself. I think most people talk to themselves, not out loud. You think. By the very fact of thinking, you're talking to yourself to some degree. An omniscient God would hear that. So, in essence, I'm almost talking to him. Well, if he's omniscient and omnipotent, then he would intervene in the world. And I live in this world, so I'm affected by it. So I influence him, he influences me. I think that I'd call that an interaction, and I think that I would almost call that a relationship. So if he exists, yeah, I have a relationship with God. But I don't currently have a belief in him, so I don't have a belief in our relationship. But hypothetically, if he exists, yes, I do. But, I mean, yeah, in all honesty, this really wasn't a very good question either. It's like asking me, do you have a relationship with my daughter? Like you saying to me, do you have a relationship with my daughter? And then I say to you, maybe. Who's your daughter? Do you have a daughter? You see, if there's not enough information present to assert whether your daughter exists and what properties your daughter exhibits, and enough information for me to really judge if I may or may not know your daughter, I can't answer that question. So until I have enough information to assert, to define and grasp a concept of a God and his existence and proof of his existence, maybe then I can answer the question accurately. But until then, it's only answerable in hypotheticals. That's all I got for you. Sorry for such a long video. I hope that you respond. I want to hear what you have to say. Have a good day.